Well, maybe things that happen leave other kind of traces behind. Not things that anyone can notice, but things that people who shine can see.
Hello, so it's spooky season and there's a really cool tag going around, and I've already said in the live stream I did that I'm going to do this now, so I'm going to do it now. It's originally created by Jess Bookgirl TV, and it's the King of Horror Stephen King book tag, and it's a really interesting book tag with really interesting questions. I've got the questions on my phone, which I don't normally do, but I think it's going to work quite well, and I've got a few books here ready. Part of the reason why I'm doing it now is that as part of my library tour, which you wouldn't have seen yet, but it's going to be ongoing through the next few months, because I keep finding books I haven't included. I've got so many books, but as part of that, I've got one video coming up, which is all my Stephen King books. So I've got 60 Stephen King books. I thought I had 51. I found another box. So I've got 60 Stephen King books, and I go through those in a video. And because they're all out here, I thought it'd be a good time to do the Stephen King of Horror Stephen King book tag. So here we go. The first question is, how did you get into reading Stephen King? So I actually found a Stephen King book that my sister owned, and I borrowed that, and that was the first time I'd read a Stephen King book, and I loved it, and I went from there. So I was quite young. I was about 14, 15, something like that. I absolutely loved it, and I'll tell you which one it is in a minute, because the second question is, what was the first Stephen King book you read? So obviously this is what got me into him, and quite rightly, because it really is a fantastic book. I think it's one of his best. Night Shift. So the short story collection Night Shift. I think a lot of people think it's one of his best, and because I quite enjoy watching like tier ranking videos of Stephen King stuff, and it's interesting the way people judge his books. But a lot of people love this, and I really love it. I think it's really cool, and it's a nice introduction to his writing. He's very good at the short story, so obviously he's famous for writing very big books, but he's really good at the short story. So anyway, Night Shift was the first book I'd read. The third question is, have you read a Stephen King book published the year you were born? Well, his first book, Carrie, was in 1974. And I was born in 1971, so sadly I'm too old to be able to answer that question. Number 4, which of these books do you prefer to collect? Hardcover editions, paperbacks, or it doesn't matter. So if I see a book I haven't got by him, I get it regardless, which is why I've got so many, because I've only read probably about half of them. But I do look out for paperback versions, so I've got some hardback ones, and some of the hardback ones are really cool. So this one is quite nice condition, and I found that second hand. So I do have some hardbacks, but I've got 2 copies of this one, and this was one I actually read, but the other one I prefer, because I just think paperbacks are better, so I just like paperbacks. So I do tend to try and collect paperbacks, and most of my Stephen King books are paperbacks. Number 5. How many of his books are on your bookshelf? Okay, so I did have all of that row was all Stephen King at one point, when I was like determined to go through a load of them, and then I realised that's not going to happen. I'm going to kind of dip into him every few books or something. So then I put them behind in the back shelf, and now I've got boxes in the loft of Stephen King stuff. So I usually keep a few out if I think they're the next ones I'm going to read, and I've got 3 there, which are the 3 hard case crime ones. But other than that, they're all in the loft. Number 6, Stephen King is known for long and gory novels. Which of his books was tough to read? So, I think that is probably an answer that I would be more able to answer in a little while, in a few years' time, because I think I've heard that I can't remember what it's called. Have I got it around? I've got it, but I don't know. One of his books that I haven't read yet, Rosa Mad, I think it might be called. That's got domestic violence in it. I think I'm going to find that really tough. There is some domestic violence in a couple of other his books. I won't tell you actually because one of them is going to be a spoiler. But I've got a feeling that's going to be really tough. So I imagine that's going to be hard for me because it's just a subject that I find really hard to deal with. I don't like watching movies with it in. I can't, if it's a TV drama with it in, I struggle because just my history and stuff. So there are a couple of edits in this because I've got a horrible cough and I don't want that on the video. So apologies. Number 7, have you DNF'd a Stephen King book? No, I haven't DNF'd a Stephen King book, but there are a few I've put off because I didn't expect to like them. So I've heard bits about them, or if the plot didn't grab me and those kind of things, I haven't started them. So it could be when I decide to be really completist and read everything I've got, then I might start DNFing possibly, I don't know. Number 8, have you read his books in publication order? No, not at all. Definitely sort of approaching his books as a mood reader. If something grabs me, I'll go for it. Number 9, what Stephen King books would you like to read but haven't read yet? Okay, so I think this is these are the next few books I'm going to read. I need to finish this, so I'm halfway through 4 Past Midnight, so I need to finish that one anyway, which is really good, by the way. And these are 4 books that are the next ones I'm going to read. So I have got a lot of other books I haven't read yet, and I've got a lot of his books I have read, but I want to read Gerald's Game, and I've almost read that a few times, so I need to get to that. So Gerald's Game, and Billy Summers. I wanted to read Billy Summers, another one that was really praised when it came out, and I managed to get pretty much a new copy for like stupid money, 50p or something. So I want to read Billy Summers. And I do want to read Mr. Mercedes. I'd like to read the whole trilogy and possibly The Outsider and then read Holly. So I want to read Mr. Mercedes. I've got the whole trilogy. And then The Long Walk, because I've got a feeling I'm going to really like The Long Walk. But again, it might be a bit dry and slow, I'm not sure. But I don't know, I think it's my kind of thing. So The Long Walk as well, which is obviously Richard Bachman one. So those are the next ones I'm going to read. Number 10, name a book he's written that other people liked but you didn't. Okay, well this is difficult because I've never read a book I didn't like by him, but I'll just mention the one that I liked the least. So, and I think it was Me. I think I need to read it again because I wasn't connecting to it, and I just think it was where I was at the time. So Colorado Kid has been really praised, and it didn't really grab me. So I am going to read it again, and I'm probably going to read it again before I do my Hard Case Crimes video, because it'd be nice to say that I like all 3 of them, because the other 2 I really, really like. So yeah, out of his 3 Hard Case Crimes books, wasn't a big fan of Colorado Kid. I think it's Me, so I'm going to read it again just in case. 11, name a book of his you think is underrated. Yeah, okay. So this is one of my favourite Stephen King books. So when I do my big library tour bit of 60 Stephen King books, I leave my 3 favourite Stephen King books till last, and this is one of them. Needful Things. I think Needful Things is really underrated because I've heard some people say they didn't really like it, or it goes on too long, it's too big, that kind of thing, but I really like it. And I didn't feel, I don't really feel like it was too long. I think you just got to keep going. There are sometimes some books, and one of my favourite ones I do think could have shaved off 100 pages or whatever, 200 pages possibly. It's huge. But yeah, this one I really like it, and I didn't feel too bad as far as the size of it. So yeah, Needful Things I think is underrated because it doesn't tend to be in people's favourites, and it is one of my favourites. Number 12, creepy characters. Which Stephen King characters would you like to have dinner with? Well, that's difficult, really. This is a really difficult question. For that one, I can't remember his name. It's gonna bug me because I should remember his name. But the character in The Dead Zone, the one with the special abilities, I'd like to speak to him. That'd be cool. Have dinner with the main character of The Dead Zone. Brilliant book. Number 13, has Stephen King inspired you to start reading and writing? I think he probably did. I think because I was reading him so early on, I think he definitely inspired me to read horror, and to he was one of a batch of people that I was reading a lot when I was a teenager, short stories and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think he definitely got me to read, and I think one of the stories in my first collection is quite Stephen King-ish, I'd say, which is, I mean, obviously I can't write as well as he does, but there's little shades of that kind of thing, possibly influenced by Ray Bradbury as well. But he was, so it's hardly a surprise. Number 14, if you were able to meet Stephen King, what would you say? I would love to have just a general chat with him and ask him about other things. So not necessarily ask about his books or his film adaptations, but ask about other things he likes. Ask him whether he likes Tex Avery. Ask him if he likes the Marx Brothers. Ask him if he likes... I think I mean, I've just mentioned things just came out of my head, and like humour is always an interesting thing to ask people and see, does he like Monty Python? That's sort of three big sort of humorous things that I love. That be interesting to know if he had that sense of humour, because he doesn't really put humour in his books much. So that'd be interesting to know. Number 15, have you ever been to Bangor, Maine? No, I've only been to America once. I absolutely loved it, but it was LA. Going again to America next year. Yes. Number 16, which do you prefer more, his books or his movies? Well, I think the thing about Stephen King is that he's a great storyteller. So I think you're losing that side of it if you watch a film. So there's some great film adaptations, absolutely some brilliant ones. But I think it's still going to be his books that are brilliant because of the way he writes. And the next question is, name your favourite Stephen King movies. Okay, there's going to be a few. I'll try and limit to 6. So The Dead Zone. I think The Dead Zone is fantastic. Christopher Walken's performance is amazing, and it's directed by Cronenberg, and David Cronenberg's genius. So yeah, The Dead Zone is fantastic. I love that film. I love the film Misery. I think most people love the film Misery. I think everything about it's great. Rob Reiner is very good at doing that kind of thing, and the characterization is fantastic, and the two leads are phenomenal. So yeah, go with those. Shawshank Redemption, obviously, really powerful film, and Frank Darabont clearly related to Stephen King's stuff. Stand By Me, actually. Stand By Me. That's obviously an adaptation of The Body, and that's really good. The original David Soul starred version of Salem's Lot, that had a real powerful effect on me as a kid. Everyone talks about The Boy in the Window. So yeah, Boy in the Window, Salem's Lot, really, really good. And then one more, I would go with... I'll tell you what, I'm going to say, because I just think it's... Well, actually, no. I know what I'm going to do. It's not an adaptation so much as he wrote the thing. And that's, I love the film Creepshow. So, it's George Romero directed it. He wrote the script. And Stephen King actually stars in it as well. He's one of the main characters, because he's the only character, I think, in the second story where this meteorite starts infecting him. It's brilliant. But I really like Creepshow. I think it's a bit underrated. So yeah, I'm going with that for my favourite 6 Stephen King films. It says tag people, and there's quite a lot of people that have done this one. I'm going to throw a few people out there just in case. So, Another Book Channel, Aaron Read a Book, David Wiley. I don't think Michael K. Vaughan has been tagged, but he might have been. I'll throw that one out there. And someone else that may not have been tagged. Jack from Spreadbook Joy. Okay, so anyway, really wanted to do this tag because I think it's brilliant, and I do really, I mean, clearly, if I bought 60 of his books, clearly I'm a fan of Stephen King. But I don't actually, well, I have done a video, but I don't really talk about him that much. So maybe I should do more. But the man is a fantastic storyteller, brilliant with characters. It's funny because obviously sometimes he can overdo it, like we've talked about, shaving off a few pages off his books and that. But the one thing he can overdo sometimes is something he's really good at. So, you know, a very immersive experience reading Stephen King, I think. So anyway, massive shout out to Jess, who created the tag, and thanks a lot for watching. Bye.
Paint me a picture of what it's like to